slow up, no I don't take shit. I got no love for the fakeness. If you wanna play tough and wanna hate this, I'll always show up. I don't ever slow up, no I don't take shit. I got no love for the fakeness. If you wanna play tough and wanna hate this, I'll
with me, Larry Taylor, the real life lawyer, and
Keinya, the superstar.
she is a superstar. She is a superstar. She's been killing it. She's been killing it. So, Keinya, I am not going to delay because we got some crazy ass topics to talk about. Let's talk about the death penalty.
I think you should go first.
I should go
You
first.
should go
All
first.
right. So, okay. So, in South Carolina recently, Mikal Mahdi was executed by firing squad. Firing squad. Guns, shooting at a person to kill him.
Missing shots.
Not lethal injection, not the gas chamber. Firing squad.
Firing squad.
And I'm going to do research. Did they bring back the guillotine? Because that's as archaic as you can get shooting someone by fire squad. So let me talk a little bit about the story. So Mikal Mahdi was set for execution. And the way the Guardian had reported it, I do believe it was 3 officers who were set to fire at 3 to 4 officers set to fire at targets around his heart. And this execution didn't go as planned. They were about 15 feet away, and all but 1 or 2 missed, causing him to be on the ground for minutes in pain. I think the report stated that they heard him groan.
Yeah.
And him moving on the ground, and he screamed out right before and flinched. And so how humane is that, and what's your take on it?
It's very inhumane.
Mm-hmm.
And I just feel like at what point, how can I say this? I'm trying to figure out how to say it without, okay. At what point do you take accountability and reassess? Because if you shoot somebody once and you miss, first of all, why are you shooting them at all?
That's that.
Why are you shooting at all?
Let's go there. Let's go there. In the thought process to bring back firing squads.
I never even knew that was a thing. I feel like if electric chair is too much, definitely firing shots at someone is too much.
It is the sound of guns being fired while being having a mask or a hood over your face so you can't see, and then the thought of bullets ripping through your flesh, hoping that they hit your heart. And the way the report read is that it's supposed to cut off blood supply instantly to your brain and to the rest of your body, and so therefore you don't have that pain, or you don't have those moments in death. You lose consciousness. That is not very scientific, right?
It's not. But my thing is, you're standing 15 feet away and you're missing a target. Who are these people?
Right? Did they
Who
just
are
get
they?
hired?
But it's just, what thought process, what do your mind have to be like in order for you to say, I'm going to shoot you to death?
Yeah.
And it makes me ask this question, judge, jury, and executioner, who gave man this much authority?
The laws. So the laws of this country, when we established our criminal justice system, it was basically laid out both at the federal level, but also states have the right states to make up their own laws based on what their government feels their needs are. For example, Idaho isn't going to really have laws that involve shipping, right? They don't have an ocean. So that's not going to be a problem there. If you're in California, you may not have laws regarding tornadoes, right? That's not what really happens there. And so every state pretty much has the ability to create their own laws and also develop their own forms of punishment. That's why the death penalty was outlawed in some states and carried on in others. The fact that a lot of states are bringing those back, and the federal government is actually looking to bring back the death penalty, is something that we all should really be concerned about, because we already know that I never call it the criminal, I never add justice to that, only being because having been a former prosecutor, I understand how these cases can go awry and people can be convicted on very little to no evidence, just based on who they are, right? You get someone on the stand and you tell their past history. This person didn't go to school, he didn't go to college, he didn't do all these things, he's not a viable member of society, so of course he robbed and killed or broke into this car or did these things because he did not have the normal means, or he didn't fit the picturesque viewpoint of someone who has value in society. And so it's easily to convict this person because in the jury, you have men and women who probably work a 9 to 5 or who have worked a 9 to 5, who've retired, and they're believing that law enforcement doesn't arrest innocent people. And we don't, and we know that not to be the case.
Right.
Mistaken identity, bad facts, bad information. And so a lot of people really don't understand that concept of innocent until proven guilty. It's always, hey, you got arrested, so you're guilty of something. So tell us why it's not you. And that's unfortunately the way that the criminal system really works. And in that light, giving a death penalty and ending someone's life in situations where it wasn't them. Just recently, there was an execution in which the people in law enforcement who previously helped convicted an individual came back and said that they got it wrong. But yet and still, the state still moved forward with that execution.
Exactly.
So when you talk about executing people and bringing that back, and then bringing it back in such a way, I have major concerns about that.
Yeah, because like you said, there are so many people falsely convicted. So what happens when you start executing innocent people and it comes out later on after the execution that these people are innocent? Are you not concerned about the citizens' reaction?
Yeah, and they're not, because we have a group of citizens who honestly believe that you got to break a few eggs to make an omelet, in the sense that if a few people, and that is not the way, and people kill me talking about the Constitution and how they feel about the Constitution and how they feel about this country. Well, the framers of the Constitution basically stated that it's better for 1,000 guilty men to go free than one innocent man to go to jail. And we lose sight of that in the sense that this system is not perfect. And to put innocent people behind bars or even execute them, it's something that we should go beyond to try to make sure it doesn't happen. Well, we do just the opposite. We'd rather put people behind bars because it makes us feel safer, right? Even if it's the wrong person. And so it's so many times that things like that happen, and we hear the stories and we're fascinated by it. A lot of people watch the crime shows and the murder mysteries and all of these programs, and we're fascinated by it, but we really don't take into consideration how important it is to have a voice in it. And so saying that, does that affect the way that you see government and your participation in it?
Oh, all the way, because like you were saying, even federal, they're thinking about bringing back the death penalty. Where do I get a say? Can I be in that room? Where are the citizens when these things are happening? Are we heard? If we're not heard in little things, how are we going to be heard in big things like that? So it's very trying, and it makes you not want to participate. A whole generation of people are now coming out and saying, I'm actually not going to participate in anything government-based because they don't listen to us. We're not being heard. We're not appreciated. So why will we keep participating? The definition of insanity is to keep doing the same thing over and over, expecting a different result.
I am so glad you said that.
I've lost all hope.
Thank you for giving my intro into something that's going to really upset Gen Z.
Which is...
You said the definition of insanity is what?
Expecting or doing the same thing over and over and over, expecting different results.
So the lack of participation could actually be led to or could be equated to the reversal of Roe v. Wade because of the situation that happened with the Democratic Party in dealing with Bernie Sanders and at that time, Hillary Clinton. A lot of Gen Zers, a lot of individuals took that stance and said that I'm not going to vote. A la 45. And then at that point, there were a lot of things that happened during that administration that you guys didn't like.
But my thing is, Hillary won the popular vote. A lot of us did vote for Hillary. And that right there is actually what prompted a lot of us to say we're not voting because we voted Hillary.
Right.
And the Electoral College said it was the other way around.
Because not enough of you really came out. In some of those battleground states and some of those key electoral areas, if you guys would have come out in force or continuously come out in force, then we may have had different results then and now, right? And it's not necessarily to look at one party or the next, but by taking your ball and going home, you effectively do change the game. Because if you don't show up, right? One of the reasons why I show up for elections and sometimes my people win and sometimes they don't, I did my part. I exercised my voice. When you're silent, you're saying something. But a lot of times when you're silent, you're supporting the very thing that you want to speak against. So putting your ball and taking your voter registration card and put it in your wallet and going home, it's not the answer. The real answer is for you to come out in more force. Look at what happens with young candidates who come out and you guys come out and support. Here in Dallas, Texas, we had like the youngest city or school board member in the state ever. He's like 19. But a lot of that was because that generation came out in support because, to be honest with you, I wouldn't have voted necessarily for someone 19 years old or 20 years old to be on the school board. I would think that they would not have enough life experience to dictate or be effective. I was wrong. He turned out to be one of my fraternity brothers. He turned out to do a great job. But he would not have gotten there had it not been for your voice. And so it's very important for your generation not to quiet their voice, but to get louder. Don't go in your room, right? You get into an argument, you got a disagreement with the country and America. Don't go in your room and shut the door. Go into the living room, sit down at the kitchen table, and constantly exercise your voice and your point of view until you see the change that you want.
That's very difficult.
I know.
That's very difficult.
I know. And that's a large part of why this podcast is this podcast, right? Your generation, if you see something that you don't like and you try and it doesn't go the way that you want, sometimes you can say, okay, I'm done with this because this process doesn't work for me. My generation, we see it and say, well, damn, 100 of us went out there and it didn't work. All right, everyone go get 2 more people and let's try it with 300. We almost did it. It didn't work with 300. You 300 go out and get 5 more people. And now it's 1,500. You know what? We did it this time.
And you see, I agree. But my thing is there's so many things wrong with this country. And we have been seeing generations before us go back, get more people, let's try again. Retreat, get more people, let's try again. Retreat, get more people, let's try again. And we're still here. How many more of us are going to have to go out there for it to not happen?
And watch this. What you probably saw was more of America getting complacent and saying everything's running fine. Nothing is really throwing it off kilter. And either way it goes, I'm kind of okay, right? But you and I wouldn't be here had it not been for those voices. And unfortunately, we're probably in a position where we could actually lose the voices. We are losing the voices in the ground that we have made. And so it's very important and imperative that you guys continue the fight, and you guys fight even harder, because if not, what things you do have could be taken away from you. And that's the frightening thing, because, you know, you got to think about it. From the civil rights movement, Dr. King, from the women's equality movement, you got to keep fighting forward. 2007, 2008, we passed the Lilly Ledbetter Act, which guaranteed women equal pay.
Exactly.
But that took fighting. That took going back and not surrendering. No one wins, and you never get the results that you want if you surrender. Michael Jordan said it best. I miss every free throw that I never took, or every shot, every last second shot. I missed every shot that I never took.
And I can accept failure, I just cannot accept not trying.
There you go. Failure, that's going to happen. But not trying and getting hurt, nah. You hit me, I'm hitting you back.
Oh, for sure.
And so voting is your hit back or your lick back or whatever they call it these days. But that's how you move your needle forward.
So do you not think there's another way?
No, not this peaceful, not that's constructive. Because if you do anything outside of that and create a new avenue, you also create a new issue that you have to defend against. That's a large part of what we're dealing with now, is that these new avenues of political warfare are changing the landscape and making it totally different than what we've ever seen before.
Exactly.
But a large part of that can be quelled if we just continue to vote and vote in large numbers. This last election cycle, 5% of registered voters voted. 5%. 5%. 5% of the people in our county decided what the other 95 had to deal with. So how do you complain about that and say a system's broken when you didn't exercise your voice?
But you want to know something that's also messed up?
What's that?
It's when certain counties do go up and we show up and show out, how we're still, it's just like we did our parts. Because one thing I can say, even though it was only 5% of our people, our 5% did what they were supposed to do.
But watch this. One of the reasons why we have the things that we have in Dallas, it's because we vote. We have a DA that is meticulous about the cases that are filed. He decriminalized the use of marijuana, which affected young black men or young brown men probably more than any other group. And so that stopped the ability of officers to harass and to make those stops.
Profiling.
Right. And so when you take that into account, if we didn't vote in this county in order to make that happen, it would not have happened. You have to do your part and continue to do your part, even though in this particular arena, even though you're not getting the results that you want with your one vote, you just need to bring more people to the polls that feel the same way that you feel. Because standing on the sideline is waiting on someone else to fix your problem. Because right now there's no other options.
And that's why I love Gen Z, because we always gonna find a way. Because where there's a will, there's a way, and this way is broken. Honestly, that is really our opinions. Like, we really feel like the voting structure is completely broken. You have Trump getting up here saying freely how he rigged this election. Who knows if that's true? Maybe it could be true, maybe it could be false. But when you have the president stating things like that, it's just like, how is it not broken?
Well, watch this. That removing that statement and him out of the equation, the only way to change the voting laws is to vote people who believe like you in the office, that they need to be changed. That's what has to be done, because you can't change a law from the outside. You can't. You just can't do it. There's absolutely no way to change the laws from the outside. You have to find people who believe in what you believe in and vote them into office to get done what you needed done. And you know what the proof of that is?
Congresswoman Crockett.
Congresswoman Crockett, but also the flip side of that. Many of the things that you're seeing that you don't agree with is because the people who believed in those things showed up and continuously showed up when they didn't before. So I say that to say, moving on to our next topic, and then we'll close out because it went long on the election. But it's important. That was a great discussion. One of the other things that we were going to talk about was the immigration situation. Just recently, I think it was the Newark or New Jersey mayor was arrested for protesting at a detaining center. Really. And so things like that are scary in the sense that immigration those individuals were being arrested for trying to protect the civil liberties of individuals when we're actually kind of doing the opposite right now, in a sense. In the I think Politico reported that we're bringing in white South Africans for being discriminated against in South Africa. Did I say South Americans or South Africans? South Africans who are being brought in. I think 50 are being looked at to being brought over to the United States under the guise of asylum. And that is eye-opening. And so, bringing in individuals who may have been part of and supported apartheid to the U.S. because now they live in a country that is considered to be at least equal, right? Everyone is looked at more democratic, and it's not based on color as much anymore. You got to ask yourself, what kind of America do we live in when those individuals are seeking asylum here? And what is the message that we're putting out to the rest of the world? Did I drop something Did I drop something heavy?
Definitely. When it comes to, that's just real funny to me, because I thought he wanted all the immigrants gone, but you're accepting white South Africans, and it's. I just feel how I feel about him, but it's just crazy seeing white South Africans allowed when there were once Haitians being whipped at the Texas border when they were seeking asylum, turned away. So it's just like, what's really going on?
And that's the whole thing right there. That's the whole thing right there. These are not individuals that are bringing skills that
They're not.
Americans don't have. They're not computer programmers. They don't have any special skill sets that set them apart from anyone here. But they're seeking asylum, and I'm yet to see any reports that show that their life was in danger, that they were potentially on government hit lists to be executed, or any of those things. Yet and still, discussions are being had to give them asylum here. And where did they get that 50? And are we going to have a congressional hearing on this issue? Because myself and many Americans want to know. And it doesn't sound funny. You know what? Let's do this. This was a teaser to a later conversation that we're going to have about this exact subject. Asylum. Who should get it? Immigration. Who should be allowed to stay? Who should be allowed in? And who should be asked to leave? Because we have students from Columbia and other schools and PhD candidates who were asked to leave, or told to leave, or actually forcefully made to leave. Yet and still, we got 50 people from South Africa who said that they're being discriminated against and treated unfairly, not that their lives are in danger. And we're like, come.
With open arms. What skills do they have? Are they going to make America great? And in whose way?
Look, that's what we're going to have a discussion on. So, thank you once again for joining us on Taylor Made Conversations. Reach out to us. We have for merchandise, if you're interested. Please like, share our content, and visit us on Taylor Made Conversations on YouTube. You can go to tailormadelaw.com to find all of our social media handles. And you can find me at The Real Life Lawyer on Instagram and TikTok. And you can find Keinya on right here on. But you can also reach her on Taylor Made Conversations on the YouTube on the comments. And so please let her know what a wonderful job that she's doing, and how much you like her outfits and her hat and her lip gloss and all that other stuff. I think y'all do that stuff. That's what Gen Zers do.
We do.
Yeah. So you guys do that. And thank you for joining us, and look forward to seeing you next time.
Bye, you guys.
I don't ever slow up, no I don't take shit. I got no love for the fakeness. If you wanna play tough and wanna hate this, I'll always show up.